Welcome to the Bigfooty Eagles RDP Episode 6, ASelwood Piggyback. We'll discuss our spilt-blooded Subi, piling on goals, winged eagles, a snipe at Kerr, and our blockbuster against Darcy's mates at Etihad.
We're flying high. We're the West Coast Eagles, and we're here to show you why. We're the big birds, kids of the big game. We're the Eagles. We're flying.
I am QS, and joining me, as always, is Keys.
Evening, gents.
Evening. How are you?
Good.
That's good to hear. And also the other one, Toshowyouwhy, Doc.
Hello, how you going?
How you going?
I'm very well, thank you.
And unfortunately, it appears that Pants Kyle had piggybacked ASelwood on the way to doing this recording, so he's not here, and he won't be here for this recording. So
Couple of weeks' time he'll turn up.
Yeah, thanks, Asel. You're an absolute legend. So anyway, guys, pretty much what we all expected on the weekend, that we were not going to come away with a win. I know it all was a bit doom and gloom, but I think at the end of the day, it was pretty accurate. Put up a little bit of a fight, but ultimately their midfield absolutely monstered us. Is that fair to say, Doc?
Yeah, I didn't think we were that good at all. I thought we were smashed pretty much from start to finish, and the scoreboard ended up flattering us a little bit. There wasn't really any elements of the game that I thought we matched Sydney in. Obviously, they're the reigning premiers for a reason, and we're a very good team and played quite well. Not at their best, but certainly good enough to deal with us. And it was for me, it was sort of the definitive righto. That's the end of 2013 as far as us doing anything useful is. Basically, it looked to me like we had a lot of injured players out there. A lot of players that probably aren't good enough to be in the side if there weren't injuries and stuff, and a lot of other players that are either losing a bit of interest or a little bit resigned to the fact that, you know, it's not going to be the year that they had all hoped for, and that sort of all came together, and the effort wasn't there, the skills haven't been there all season, and against a team like Sydney, home or away, you've really got to be 100% on it, so we weren't, we got done, and, you know, it's probably the end of the season for us as far as anything useful goes, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I mean, one thing that they probably didn't match us in was the way their forward line functioned. However, it's the same old story with Sydney. It was their midfielders that did the damage on the scoreboard. I mean, I know Tippett, he probably got one or two, didn't he? He wasn't really that great.
Yeah, Mackenzie did a great job on him. And I think the back line did all right, and we've been critical of the back line throughout the season, but I think we've been critical of the small defenders mostly throughout the season. I think Mackenzie and Glass have been pretty outstanding all year. So that's why it's so disappointing that we leak the goals that we do, we leak the scores that we do. Because when you got Mackenzie doing such a good job on their number one key forward, and Glass playing as well as he has, I mean, he might not win our best and fairest, but I think he's probably been our best player this season. Then, you know, it really, you got to wonder what's going on with the other blokes to be conceding as many goals as we are, especially against a team like Sydney that don't have that many quality forwards.
Yeah, that comes down to the lack of midfield accountability. I think they're prepared to run both ways and run further both ways than what we are. I mean, their midfielders venture further down back than ours ever do. And help out their defenders like Teddy Richards and Malcheski, whereas ours appear to sort of not do that and just rely on the fact that Darren Glass or Mackenzie or Mitch Brown will do something to intercept the ball, but when it hits ground level, what do we have? I mean, is that fair to say, Keys? You think that we sort of lack that small accountability? I mean, Doc touched on it there.
I think we just got touched up through the middle. Their midfielders were harder at the ball. They were cleaner when they got it. They ran harder. They disposed of it better. We just got smashed through there, which is the same as the game we played against them last year. And to be honest, we were lucky that they weren't full strength. I mean, they had quite a few good players. I mean, as much as we did, so did they. Had a fair bit of quality out of the side, and we still. I think I can't remember which quarter it was. I think it was the first quarter where Hanbury was involved in the contest, was about half back for them. Ran through for the middle and ended up, he got the ball about 30 or 40 metres out from goal and ended up slotting the goal.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah,
It was early on, I think.
Yeah, no one wanted to do that, and there was another. Again, I think it was in the second quarter. There was a passage of bay in the settle in the middle. It was a loose ball. Our guys kind of hung back, and one of the jacks, I can't remember which it was, little Jack or big, younger Jack.
Jack Jr.
Just broke through, got the ball at speed, broke through, and kicked the ball into the forward line. And it was telling that our guys they didn't want it as much as Sydney did. And I know Sydney, they're elite as a midfield group.
Yep.
But they just showed us up, and I think I watched Footy Classified on Monday night, and one of their good call, bad calls was do Sydney have the best midfield? And I think the answer was yes at the time. And they've got players who individually aren't as talented as maybe other teams, but as a group, they just work so well together.
Yeah,
Almost unstoppable, aren't they? Really?
Yeah.
It's almost like it goes to the old saying, they're a team of champions or a champion team, and I think that they're the latter. And with that example you gave about one of the jacks, I remember making a comment on that. It was Kieran Jack, and the way they operate through there and the way they can disperse the ball and hit those packs at speed, have a free runner, it's empirical the way they control that midfield, and we are completely less than empirical at doing things like that. We just have no essence of bossing around that midfield at all. We just roll over and take it up the arse, basically. that's
Well, I think it's that. I mean, we'll probably talk about it later with Worsfold and his coaching, but we don't really seem to have a system in the middle of the ground, or around the packs or anything like that. It's handball, the guy standing still and ring and rosy, and then someone slams on the boat. Sydney, they've got a really good structure in the way they set up. They always seem to have someone outside in space, and usually more often than not running towards goal. So many of our handballs are to a guy with his back to goal who hasn't got to get it and then turn.
Yep. Yeah, that's absolutely on the money, I think.
Yeah, I think we got, like you said, Doc, too. I mean, the scoreboard did flatter us in the finish. I think really back to the work of Glass and McKenzie in particular. And one positive I took out of is young Adam Carter showed that he's maybe might be able to be that small defender that we've been crying out for. He's still a little bit raw, and I think he's still got lost a little bit, but it's his second game of AFL footy. And for a kid that was drafted in pick 50 or whatever he was, it does look to be possibly one of those sort of later round gems that at least will become a solid player for us over the next few years once he gets a little bit more experience and strength.
Yeah, well, we know with Carter that I don't think he was expecting to play for the Eagles at all this season. I think this was basically a year in the waffle because he hadn't played any senior waffle before he'd been drafted.
Really?
99% sure. He might have played a few Colts games.
That's amazing.
Maybe one or two. So this was a good season to start testing himself, in the big leagues of the waffle, playing for South Freo. And then, next year when he got a bit more size and experience and stuff, then they really started to push him on. I really think they got high hopes for him. And I think the fact that he came in against Fremantle and did such a good job against Ballantyne, and then to back it up against the Swans the next week, I think he could be a really, really good player for us for a long time, hopefully. Yeah,
and for a guy I hadn't seen him play in the waffle, but for most of the weekly waffle reports that I read, he had games where he'd been okay, but he hadn't really had any standout form leading in that screamed pick me. As much as we do give our match committee a hard time often with their team selections. I think this one they do deserve a bit of a pat on the back for.
Yeah, no, definitely. They look to have picked out a decent play then, but I'm just absolutely astounded if what Doc's saying is on the money, that he hadn't really played much senior footy and he's managed to come in and play as well as he has at AFL level, no less, not even playing waffle level really too much. That's great. I think he'll always be remembered as the one that legally smacked Valentine in the face. That was awesome.
Well, he had an ankle injury at the start of the season as well, so he was playing reserves for the first few weeks when he got back from that. So he might have only played 10, 12 waffle games before his Eagles debut, and to do as well as he has shows he's got a good head on his shoulders, if nothing else.
Yeah, and that's it. He looked comfortable. He didn't look overawed. And I mean, the other thing that I was quite impressed with through the game, I know he joked about it a fair bit, Carl Morton, but he was putting his body on the line. I know he was playing spare man in defence, so he's getting a fair few cheap possessions, but he was putting his body underneath it, putting his body on the line, which these are things he wasn't doing at Melbourne. So
yeah, he wasn't known for it, was he?
No, he was known for his YouTube video, wasn't
he?
Yeah, I think that's
Flash Norton.
Yeah, running away from Brendan Lay. It's,
I was watching the game with my mum and dad and trying to explain to them about this Cal Morton character that they didn't really know anything about, and he was going in and doing, like you said, getting his body on the line and taking some decent marks and stuff, and I'm going, but that's not what he normally does. He's known for running away from people and stuff, and they were telling me that I'm pretty sure you're talking about the wrong bloke, because this doesn't look like that sort of guy. So that's impressive enough from him, that he looks like he knows pretty well what he has to do to get games. He's
got a good tank too.
Yeah, well, he always has had that, at least.
Yeah, so that's a positive. And I think the problem is, I mean, we all got our hopes up towards the end of the last quarter. I think we got a sort of 3 or 4 goal run on there, and then the ever controversial ASelwood kind of put paid to that. I think there was a contest on the wing there. Him and McVeigh, I think it was, went for it, and Selwood went to ground looking for a free kick. McVeigh picked the ball up, they went and kicked the goal, and basically that ended any run that we had. What that leads me into is these runner goals. I was looking at AFL 360 before we started doing this evening, and what Kingy was talking about was teams that concede 3 goals on the trot and how often they do and where they are on the ladder. The interesting stat out of that was that Sydney had conceded 3 goals or more on 17 occasions this season, so that's less than 1 a week. That would be 1 a week because we've just completed round 17. So they're obviously top of the ladder or near the top of the ladder. And interesting one was West Coast had done it 25 times and Adelaide 24 times, and we're about mid-table on that, on the list of all the other teams. I think above us in sort of second, third, or fourth spot you had Hawthorn, Geelong, Richmond, North Melbourne, and Freo. So it's pretty accurate. But the interesting one is we managed to do it a fair bit ourselves. On 35 occasions this year, we've actually put 3 goals together ourselves without reply from the opposition. But I guess that beggars the question: how do we stop the teams getting that run on? Because what we don't seem to be very good at doing is once a team gets ascendancy and starts to run over the top of us, we can't seem to stop it. And it really seems to put the pressure on the rest of our guys, and they just drop their heads.
That goes to what Keys was saying earlier, just about a midfield that doesn't work both ways as well as other clubs. In my opinion, I think we set up very offensively in the midfield, especially when Nat Nui's playing. So if it goes the wrong way, and if a ruckman manages to get a run on, or a midfielder manages to get a run on, we aren't equipped to stop them. Whereas going back to the marvellous 2011 season, it looked as if we had very defensive midfield setups, and that allowed us to have really good games against Carlton's midfield and Geelong's midfield and stuff, because we could shut down their good players, and we had enough pace at that time to be able to counter effectively. Whereas now it looks like we're putting all our eggs in, getting a really fantastic, perfect, super clearance, and if that doesn't happen, like Keith said, the effort going the other way isn't there at the moment.
Yeah, and I'm somewhat surprised that I think you said 35 times we've kicked 3 goals or more in a row.
35 times, yeah. So that put us equal fourth, I think.
That seems quite high for what I would like to see on that though as a stat is, and I at a guess, I'd say that most often it's probably more like 3 goals and not so much more than like 4 or 5 goals. And I'd also hazard a guess that those 3 goals would be over maybe a 15-minute or so period, rather than other sides. I don't think I have the perception that we don't kick lots of goals in short periods of time. We have periods of games where we control the game for long periods and dry up the other side's scoring, but don't necessarily score that much ourselves. But we might put 3 goals on, but it might take we grind out 15 or 20 minutes and maybe get 3 goals for it. Whereas a side like Hawthorn, they can put 5 goals on in 10 minutes.
Yep. No, I think you're right there.
Whilst that stat's interesting, and I think you'll find that the times when we've conceded 3 or more goals, it won't be 3, it will be 5 or 6 or 7 goals.
Yeah, certainly something we need to get better at, A, doing ourselves in terms of kicking goals on the trot, and B, stopping from happening to us. It appears that whatever we're doing on the field isn't working, and I guess that leads us into Woosha. It's come out today that perhaps he's looking at staying on. He might have solved some of the issues in the background, but guys, is it the best thing for the club? I know we've all got our opinions on it, and Woosha's a fantastic servant. He's been a fantastic player. He's been a great coach. He's one of the favourite sons of the club. But is it the right thing to be doing? What do you reckon, Doc?
In my opinion, I think now is probably a pretty good time for him to move on. I think we do have the essence of a very good squad with lots of very good players, and we have potential to kick on from here and make something happen. And it just seems to me as if, one, Woosha's head doesn't seem to be in the right place for it at the moment, for whatever reason that is. And two, his ideas seem to have dried up a bit. Now, I know we kind of thought a similar thing around 2010-ish, that he seemed to be, the same old ideas, and then all of a sudden he flipped things around. So who's to say he couldn't do the same thing again? But it's just my gut feeling is that now would be a really opportunistic time to make a play at either a Paul Roos type, even though there's some word that he's not interested, or go for a really sort of progressive, highly rated assistant and give him a fresh crack with this sort of squad and see what he can do to sort of, mix things up a bit, make it a bit different, because it kind of feels that we've just stagnated a little bit. Certainly this season we've gone down, but the progression of players and the progression of the game plan and everything about our on-field performance has just sort of hit a bit of a snag. So, the talk today is suggesting that he might stay. That's not necessarily the worst thing. It's not worth panicking if he signs back on again. But, if it was up to me, I would say thank you for everything and really mean that, because he has been much better than people give him credit for at some stages. But, maybe now's the perfect time. I don't know if anyone else agrees with that.
Keys, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it just seemed to be the right time. I think he appeared to be jaded throughout the course of the season and devoid of ideas, and I think this year's perhaps shown up that maybe our drafting over the last few years hasn't been the best, and we've at times maybe stuck with some of the older players that perhaps we shouldn't have, and his game plan doesn't seem to hold up as it did in 2011. It's not quite the same. Just overall, just seemed a bit old and tired, and I think he gave that impression that he wasn't really enjoying it. So in a lot of ways, it seemed like it was a good time to say, look, you've had a good run. That 12 years is as long as any coach other than Sheedy's had at one club. I haven't been able to think of a coach off the top of my head that has spent as long at the one club, other than what Sheedy did at Essendon in what I would term the modern era, which is going back to the from the 70s. That said, he has got his good points. So he's certainly not, he's not the worst option in terms of carrying on. What we do need, though, is if he is going to stay on, is we do need some new blood in amongst the assistants to give some new ideas, bring something fresh. We desperately need someone who's got some stoppage workability. So there's a few, but we do need to bring in some new blood, and we probably need to look at perhaps some of the off-field, the recruiting department, etc., that maybe haven't done as well as they could have over the last 5 years.
Yeah, the other thing that may, be a theory is that pre-season we've spent that whole time preparing the guys for a certain type of playing style in terms of the endurance and maybe the leaner bodies and all that type of thing. Now we've gone out early in the season trying to play that type of game and found that it's not going to work. And then all of a sudden you're then forced to change the way you play for the rest of the season just to try and play catch-up, or at least to try and win some games and get into the eight. Do you think that maybe there's been a realisation early on in the piece that, we might have made a mistake here and we've completely wasted our pre-season and we're resigned to the fact that we're not perhaps going to do as well as what we had A, thought we would be, or B, had been projected to have done? That's, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely reckon there's a bit of that.
And given that we probably resigned ourselves to the fact that A, we're not going to make finals, and B, if we did, we weren't going to do too much damage anyway, do we need to start looking at resting players like Nick Nat and Kerr or whoever else managing these players? So, I mean, what's the mail on Nick Nat, Keys?
Well, he's obviously playing hurt, and on the news or I think from Worsfold's press conference, they're indicating that they're going to rest him for a couple of weeks, at least. The possibility it could be the rest of the season. And I think if that's the case, if he's playing hurt, don't make the mistake we made last pre-season and just think that rest is going to do it. If he needs an operation, give him the operation, get him in, so he's got time to get right. Yeah. So we don't waste another pre-season, him sitting around on his ass waiting for an operation. Get it done, get him out there, get him fit, ready for next year. The rest, this year's shot.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think it's probably worth looking at. Did you have something to add to there, Doc?
Oh, I just completely agree with what he's saying. Nader's knackered. It's been all but confirmed that it is osteitis pubis that he's got. And if that's the case, us trying to force him to play through that is a really, really poor decision. We almost ruined Judd trying to do the same thing. We're getting to the point now where we're risking potentially one of the best players this club could ever have, maybe. Who knows what Nick Natanui could be. And to be risking him now with this sort of injury is just insane to me.
It's almost criminal.
Put him on ice. Sorry?
It's almost criminal behaviour, isn't it?
It almost is. I mean, he came back too early, for one. He probably came back about round 5, I think it was.
Yep.
When they were predicting at least another month, and all of a sudden, Natanui's right, and we were all happy as Larry. But he came back too early, for one. He clearly wasn't ready. And now he can hardly run. He can hardly jump. He limped from the first bounce to the last siren on Sunday. And it looks like finally they've decided, we actually have to look after our assets here, look after the welfare of our players, and just put him on ice, get him his surgery, give him half a chance at a pre-season. There's no guarantee now that even if he is done now that he'll be fit for a full pre-season, which he's never had. So, I don't know, we've looked after him very badly. It was out of desperation that he played really from the start. It could backfire massively unless we backtrack a bit now, I think. So I think Keys is spot on.
It's almost like treating an animal it's almost like feeding a kitten Fruit Loops every day, isn't it?
It's exactly like that. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's a perfect analogy.
It's not looking after your own, basically. And you're right in what you said. Judd, we just pushed him because we needed to get that, try and do well in 2007 to capitalise on 2006. And it was the wrong thing to do, I think. I mean,
it's interesting. It's interesting you raised Judd because we had a couple of beers after work and some of the blokes made the comment. They were talking about Ablett and his game against Collingwood on the weekend, and one of the guys made the point that Ablett and Judd are the same age. And you sort of compare the way Ablett's almost playing career best footy, and Judd's just about. Judd's not quite shot, but he's not anywhere near his best for whatever reason. I'm thinking at the time you're sort of laughing, sort of, but almost as if we knew he was going in that last year, and we thought, oh well, let's just run him into the ground, and Carlton won't ever get the best of him. And we did ruin him. I mean, if he was still at the club, we would be looking at that 2007 season and going, what the hell did we do with such a champion player? And if we're not careful, we'll make the same mistake with Nick Nat.
Yeah, and there's no gain to having him now.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, at least in 2007, we were somewhere. We were still in the midst of premiership. We were a top four side. We were in the middle of premiership contention. Yeah. There was some justification for trying to get games out of Judd, and he was still a dangerous player despite his injuries. But
that's the other thing.
We're going to miss the finals.
Well, he wanted to play, didn't he, Judd?
Yeah, and Judd actually added a bit up full forward. Unfortunately, Nat Nui, I mean, as much as we love him, he's adding nothing because he can't move, and that's not his fault. That's just him doing the best with what he's given, and it's not helping us. So there's no winners by keeping him playing right now.
No, exactly right, and we've got to look after these guys. And I think one of the startling things I heard that Woosher had come out and said these things about Kerr, that he wasn't doing enough around the ground. And it's interesting he's picked out one of the senior guys who's obviously not right most of the time. His body's starting to pack it in. And I don't know, is it a fair thing to say? That,
I think if you look at the comment in isolation and you look at some of Kerr's games that he was playing for us, and it's been something. Kerr's not been strong his entire career at running both ways. He's never been a particularly defensive midfielder. So in some respects, Worsfold was correct in that Kerr perhaps hasn't been running hard enough defensively and things like that. But very unusual for Worsfold to pot one of his players publicly like that.
Unless he was doing it to make a point to say it doesn't matter who you are. But it still seemed in his entire history he's very rarely had a go at his players. Yeah. I mean, there was times in 2008, 2009, 2010 when we were struggling, and I'd watch a press conference and I was waiting for Worsfold just to unload. Yeah,
and just say. Happened. And it never did it. In honesty, it is one of his strengths. He backs his players in. He very, very rarely says anything negative about any players publicly at all. What he says behind closed doors may be completely different. But the Kerr comment was sort of what was surprising about it was why he said it when he hasn't really got that track record of doing so.
Yeah, and it's almost as if, well, why are you saying it in 2013 when he's been doing it since 2003?
Exactly.
So it's...
And also at a time where, he's clearly struggling with his body. His body's not allowing him to play the game the same way that he used to.
Yeah. There's been some good posts about it in the Daniel Kerr thread, so I'll be interested to see what some of our learned friends have to add to that. But look, I think we should probably we can make our own decision as to why that happened. We've got a road trip this week, and we seem to play better away from home this year because we wear the mighty wings.
That's all it is.
Yeah. We're not wearing the old St Kilda tri-panel jumper there. So, guys, how do you see this one, Doc?
Well, I think Josh Kennedy will be fancying himself for the Coleman now, up against the Bulldogs at such a critical time. He's got a 1-goal lead. He has a history of pantsing the Bulldogs for fun. So I think a sneaky fiver on JK from here. If he adds another 10 in this game, he might be hard to catch. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, at this point of the season, that's all I'm really watching for. I just want JK to win the Coleman now.
Yeah,
that's a few good signs I'd like to see. Good to see Carter play well. Hopefully a couple of other young players. I don't know. I'm really enjoying watching Maston play, and I hope he keeps that up. But apart from that, just keep going, JK. Win the Coleman, make All Australian, and that's all we can do right now. Unfortunately, we'll probably beat the Bulldogs. If we don't, then the Woosha discussion becomes more: does he sign or do we sign him? Yeah. But we just got to look for the little things now, and certainly we've had some good fortune against them in the past. Have we played the Bulldogs this year already?
Yeah, we must have played them earlier on. I think
and we won.
Oh yeah.
It was one of our very few home wins.
Yep.
Yeah. See, I can't remember it, so it mustn't have been that good a game. I assume it was one of those games that we just demolish a minnow as normal.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Flat track bullies.
Yeah, that's pretty much right.
That one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I can't say I'm overly confident about this game.
No, neither am I.
I just have it's one of those ones that comes up. You just have a bad feeling about that. The Bulldogs are capable of pulling out the odd good game, and they've done that a couple of times this season. They do that against us. Our guys we've probably had 4 or 5 pretty big, hard games that, at different times we've played well in without necessarily getting the win. This one, on face value, is perhaps an easier game, but it's over there. We're tired. It is a dangerous game, and we're sitting 10th on the ladder with 7 wins. We're not a great side. We're not a good side that's good enough to just go out and say, well, we're an automatic win coming up.
Yeah.
But like you say, Doc, I think there's some interest in hopefully JK kicking the bag. I'm looking forward to seeing Mitch Brown have another game. He's the bit of scuttlebutt that he's maybe keen to re-sign with us. I hope that he can continue to develop. He gets a bit of he's not particularly well regarded on our board. I think he sometimes is a little unfairly maligned.
I think so too. I think he's been great.
I think he does some stupid things, but he does do some good things. And I think we forget, as much as he's been around the club for 5 or 6 years now, he's still only around about the 60, 70 game mark.
Yeah, so he's still relatively fresh, but
yeah,
I think we touched on it last week. He's got a bloody good fist on him.
Yeah, and I think he's. I mean, you look at where Mackenzie was in terms of the same number of games, and I don't know that Mitch Brown's all that far behind where Mackenzie was at the same level of games. And Mackenzie's come on brilliantly.
Yeah, he has. And I think people forget.
Go
on.
You go. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I was just. See, there's that token unprofessionalism that we have at Sid
we were going so well.
We were, but it's got to happen. Look, I think people forget pretty quickly that the job he did against Buddy at the MCG last year, he did a great job on him.
Yeah.
And so he can play against the biggest names. And he hasn't done too badly this year on the players he's played on. I mean, sure, he lets the ball go through his legs, and there's a couple of fumbles here and there, and gets a hit to the head from Pav. But look, hey, at least he puts himself in the right positions, and that's a lot of things he wasn't doing for a while. So if he improves those things and gets himself fitter, and I've no doubt that that he's good enough to slip into the Mackenzie role. Maybe that Mackenzie was playing 2 years ago, where he was understudy to Glass. Well, Mackenzie steps up and becomes a big man on campus and our defensive 50. So, look, in terms of the game this week, I'm the same as you, Keys. I'm not entirely confident. I think we'll win, but I think it won't be easy unless we show up with some. If we show up there and play with a lot of grunt and pressure and do what we do well, we will win quite easily. However, at this point, and from what I've seen, I don't see that happening. So I'm not sure how Lysette, and I'm assuming he'll play, goes up against Minson. Cox, I don't think, can go with Minson for very long, because I don't think Cox is right either. But interesting, that'll be a good test for Lysette, actually. It's probably one of the things I'm looking forward to see where he's actually at, because at the moment, for me, I have actually got Sinclair ahead of Lysette. So I don't know how you blokes feel about that, but
I thought Sinclair was good at the start of the season.
I think
pressure was good.
Yeah, I think on exposed AFL form, I think Sinclair showed more than what Lysette did.
Yep.
But he's a big part of our future. We've invested a bit in him so far. I think the club are really hoping that he does come on, and this is a chance for him. He is up against Minson's likely to be an All-Australian this year, I think.
I think so too.
It's a good little test. It's a good test for him to see how he goes, and it's maybe it might help our midfield to rove to a losing ruck for a change rather than a
winning ruck.
A winning ruck. And
yeah, it's a good idea.
I think the one good thing is if we can get the ball in there often enough. The Bullies' defence is pretty average.
Yeah.
And we've got some real talent down there. If we can get it in there often enough, I think we can kick a winning score. And they don't really have the forward line that is going to scares too many sides. But it's just, again, if we don't win through the midfield and they get it in there too often, they'll eventually score on us.
Yeah, no, I think so.
And at least we've got Carter to play in Dowhouse, who's usually quite a dangerous forward. He does play quite well against us.
Yep.
So I'll be interested to see how he goes against him. And Glass to play his usual sweeper role across that he's been playing this year.
Yep.
We should be able to hold him out.
Yeah, that's the other one. Is be interesting to see if good old Scotty Selwood decides to make an appearance this week, because I know that Woosha said he wasn't going to play last week, but it's a chance for this week, and I don't think he'll play. But if he does, they might stick him on Griffin, because Griffin's been pretty hot this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the one midfielder they got that can do some real damage.
Gee, wouldn't it be good to have him?
Yeah, I reckon we should go after Cooney. I still rate Cooney. I don't know if he's not as good as he was maybe a few years ago. I still think he's a good player.
He's still a good player. I think his knees are a real worry. I think they're I think they're held together with sellotape, and they're just a moment from just completely disintegrating. I think he's gone. I think he's probably doing quite well, coping with what's a pretty average knee condition, from what I understand.
Yeah, but for this weekend, he's the sort of bloke that could cause us trouble. I reckon he's exactly the sort of midfielder who could carve us up a bit. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, although he plays, he's been playing a bit more across half back, hasn't he, this year? I think.
Yeah, because he used it well.
Which I think Cripps played on Malceski.
Yeah, I think he did.
That's right. A fairly reasonable defensive job on him.
Yep.
Albeit that the ball wasn't down in forward half all that often. But I did see the stats. I think Malczewski had about 15 or 16 disposals for the game, which is down from him, and he didn't seem to give the same sort of drive that he often gives.
No.
So, yeah, Cripps would have the pace to go with Kearney.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's another little role in his development as well.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, look, I'm going to go out and say that I reckon we'll win this by 20 points. That's my tip. How about you, Keys?
3 goals for me, for us.
Yep. And how about you, Doc?
Ooh. I think we'll win by, let's say, 27 points, I reckon.
27
27. 27 with JK kicking 6.
There you go. That's the hot tip from Doc, and 27 points it'll be. Post of the week, guys. I know that everyone looks forward to digging out a post that they've seen. Look,
It's been hard work this week.
it has, and I've actually found a bit of an obscure one. I've gone down your railroad here, Doc. Now it's the one that I found. It's in the Daniel Kerr thread, and it's posted by Lionel Johnson today at 3:11 p.m. and responding to Endot, who provides some great posting reading at times. Endot said, "I'm sure Wishy gives all our players feedback, both positive and negative, almost every day. The question is, why has he chosen to put the torch on Kerr publicly?" Now, Lionel Johnson has read this and digested it, and then he's used that thought process to produce this. Because he's the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now. So we'll hunt him, because he can take it. Because he's not our hero, he's a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight.
So very relevant.
I don't see how it's relevant, but it was funny, and I've liked it. Rhino WCE, Butler, and 2 others have liked
The
it.
Butler.
Yes. Who else liked it? Bodazoka and Prem 87, who's still rocking the Brad Scott avatar.
There's a few of those still going around. Impressive.
There is. It is very impressive. So, who would like to go next?
After you, Keys.
Okay, it's an obscure one, and it's more just because it's just rather pointless, but and it's actually a thread as opposed to just a post. Started by Dirty Rats and our loose-fitting Guernseys.
Oh, that one.
He's got a point, I reckon.
Why so baggy? Makes it easy to tackle. Compare them to Sydney's on the weekend and the rest of the teams for that matter. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's by his own admission, clutching at straws much or a serious matter. And I did notice Sydney's jumpers did seem to be quite tight on the weekend, but I think amongst our issues,
Spandex line.
Baggy jumpers are maybe towards the bottom of the list, but it was something I thought it did appeal to my silly sense of humour.
No, it's not a definitive reason why we are where we are, I don't think. I don't think we could pin the Port Adelaide game on our baggy jumpers.
75% of the jumpers, I reckon.
75. Ooh, bit real.
And Passenger did a decent reply saying, if we go nude, no one would tackle us. Female membership would go through the roof too. So,
and we wouldn't watch.
No.
I couldn't, mate. I'll just have to listen to Smokey Dawson on 6PR.
Don't be that scared.
Doc, how'd you go, mate? Did you find one that piqued your interest?
Yeah, I've gone against my usual grain of just looking for weird stuff, and I'm just going to reward effort for this one. Like Keys's, it's an OP of a thread. Coldinho, he's talking about Carlton Cole, I think. Games missed through injury this season, and he's gone through exhaustive list of all of the players who have been injured at any stage this season and the amount of games they've missed. I'm not going to read the whole thing out, but I suggest you go and check it out because it gives you an idea at perhaps why we've been so garbage this season. And he's worked out that is 177 weeks collaboratively, all up, that our players have missed.
Mind you, that's the old Embers.
That's Embers, yeah.
Yeah, So I would be going and checking that because there's every likelihood that it's wrong.
He's all right. He's all right. He has listed, actually, now you mention it, when he first posted it, I had to correct him and slot a couple of other injuries in that he'd missed. But he's got 6 players, he reckons, that haven't been injured. So you can do your own little homework and work out if this is right or wrong. Fraser McInnes, I could have sworn he was injured at some point. Or was I wrong there?
So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pritis, did he miss a week at some stage?
I don't think he did. He missed most of the Port Adelaide game after getting.
That's
He
right.
got
He's
placed
precious.
early, but I don't think he's actually missed.
He's not. Mate, he's Mr. Reliable in terms of injuries. I know he's not Mr.
Yeah.
Reliable in other areas, but yeah, no, he's just he's a machine.
Dean Cox hasn't been injured, and we've certainly benefited from him this season, haven't we? Ooh.
He's still provided a presence, Coxie, with his arms.
Big fat presence, hasn't he?
He's a bit bigger, isn't he?
He's given the umpires a bit of a chop out. He's sort of helped them make a couple of
Been
decisions
winding
along
me
the
up
journey.
constantly this season. Kenneth Pritis, Cox, and then Gaff hasn't missed any games. Jack Darling hasn't, and either has Mark Hutchings. They've been those 6 players apparently, even though we're pretty confident that some of those are wrong. That gives an idea. That means pretty much every single player on our list has missed games this season, be it in the AFL or in the Waffle. The most, of course, has been Big Turbo McGovern, who's missed 14 weeks.
Oh, poor.
Is whatever's wrong with him.
The McGovernator. Hey, we got to pick a winner. I just based on the fact that it's so informative, I'm going to run with Doc's post, I reckon.
I'm going to go for yours then, I reckon. Just because you went for mine. Just because you went for mine.
Oh, isn't that nice?
And
Keys,
I'll-
tiebreaker.
I'll tie break and go with Docs.
Oh, there you go. So,
Well done,
Because
Well done,
as much
Embers.
as much as the bag ends out for probably being wrong, it would have taken a bit of time to put that together. So
reward
well done
for
to him.
effort. Bit of
we
a
know
men-
Embers is a busy bloke.
bit of a mention. So, hey, look, guys, that's it for the week, and we've flown a man short, and we've done okay, I think. So hopefully
Might just be the best one yet.
our 2.5 listeners agree with you, Doc. It has been a good one, and look, let's look forward to having a crack at the Bullies this week, and let's hope Josh Hill gets best on ground, because won't Ant know about that?
Yes.
Small victories, that's what we're after.
Yes, a lot of tags flying around there. So I'll bow out. See you later, guys.
Okay. Cheers,
Bye.
guys.
See ya.